the podcast that finishes your workday in a very Red Raider way. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hey there, it's Tech Talk on Double T 97.3 and Double T 97.3.com with Dr. Mike Gustafson and Clint Scott. I'm Aaron Dickens. We're joining you today from the First United Bank studio with you until 6 o'clock. We will have a friendship basketball girl-boy doubleheader for you beginning at 6. Girls up first hosting Idalou, and the boys will follow after that hosting Canyon Randall. And you will be on the call, is that correct, Clint?
Choice and I.
You and Choice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What's that like?
I feel like I just annoy him a lot. I just try to. My approach with calling games with Choice is whatever he says, I try to say the opposite of and go, well, actually, Choice.
Yeah, dropping a bunch of well actuallys makes for a great radio play-by-play broadcast.
No, Schwa and I have fun when we get to do games together.
We love
lots of crowing about the referees.
Yes. Oh my gosh. No one hates anything more than Woodman hates officials.
See, I was going to put Kyle Rogers on that list.
Really?
Yeah, it's right up there. Those two need to hang out a little more.
Love to hear your thoughts and your comments today on the Yates Flooring Center chat line at Double T 97.3.com. You can also weigh in through the Double T 97.3 mobile app. All guests appear via the Benchmark hotline. How about this, Gus? We have some TV ratings from the conference championship games, and lo and behold, there were 5, obviously, Power 5 conference championship games this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
All but one had at least one kind of high-profile name brand blue blood or blue blood adjacent program involved, right? You had Georgia and LSU. Those are both kind of in that category. Georgia, the defending champions. LSU has won 2 national championships in the last 20 years or so. Michigan and Purdue, clearly the Wolverines are a blue blood. They are one of the winningest programs in the history of the sport. USC is a blue blood in its matchup against Utah, and then Clemson is kind of a new blood, right, against North Carolina. The one game that did not have anything close to that was the Big 12 game, right? Kansas State and TCU, 2 purple teams. Probably have guessed by now that it was good news to the Big 12. Otherwise, I wouldn't be bringing it up at the top of the show. Big 12 drew 9.41 million viewers, which is not as much as they had for the SEC game, 10.89, so 10.9 essentially, or the Big Ten game, 10.7. So you were about 1 million plus off of both of those games. But compared to the Pac, 5.97. Compare that to the ACC, 3.47. In other words, the Big 12 had more viewers for its game than the ACC and Pac-12 games combined.
And when we talk about, and I'm sort of setting the ACC aside, although based on those numbers, maybe we don't need to, but we're all really trying to position ourselves as the third conference. And again, I'm setting the ACC aside because they're not going to be doing anything with their media rights deal for a while, as we discussed ad nauseum this summer. But if the idea is you want to make sure that you're in there, tucked in there behind the SEC and Big Ten, this provides really good evidence of that. Now, there's probably the conversation probably runs much deeper than this, and I think it was something else we talked about this summer. Like, would love to know all the metrics, because we always get TV ratings. That was forever about the only metric that mattered. Mm-hmm. Now, social media following and hashtags and who knows what all else. But I think it's a great number. I think the interesting part of it is very much what you said. There's no blue blood there. no offense to anyone, but that's not Michigan, USC, da-da-da. And the beauty of it is, from the Big 12 standpoint, there's no Texas or OU involved in it.
And they would certainly count as a blue blood or
absolutely. And they would skew that number. We would be looking at that going, well, yeah, that's because Texas or OU's in it. Now, how much of that, if it's 10-2 TCU and 9-3 K-State, how much of that is how much of that number hangs in there? I don't know. I'm sure the fact that there was a playoff implication there helped and made it more interesting. But I think it was an awesome number. I think it's the kind of number that, Yormark can run around and be happy about that. There's so much to like about that. I mean, it's a really good year for a team to go undefeated in the Big 12 and make a playoff run. That's not named Texas or OU for all the media rights reasons and all that. It also, when I hear that, I also think, you know what? I'm kind of glad that was only a 6-year media rights deal. The one that we have.
Betting on yourself.
Yeah, because
still haven't had any official announcement on that.
Which is interesting. That was sort of my caveat there.
The clear low performer here is the ACC. Somewhat understandable because that game, there were no playoff teams involved. But even the Pac-12 number, right? I mean, that was going into the weekend. That was the game that probably had the most on the line in terms of, hey, USC needs to win this game. I think the conversation last week was, hey, TCU probably doesn't need to win this game. Lo and behold, that turned out to be true. They didn't need to win it. USC had to. You were all alone on Friday night, right?
Yeah. No, you're exactly right.
And you pulled a pitiful number. And your best brand was in the game.
Right. The one that's leaving. Yeah. The one that's guaranteed to leave.
Your Big Daddy brand.
Right. Two strikes against you, because it sort of nullifies my case, Aaron, that there was a playoff team involved. There was a team playing with playoff implications. That was USC the night before. And here's the other thing. They had their own time slot. Who split Saturday night? It was the ACC.
I think it was the ACC and the Big Ten.
Big Ten, okay. And that was the one. They were the ones. That's the only one of these 4 games that we're really talking about, are 4 time slots. The 3 traditional ones on Saturday plus Friday night that had 2 games on top of each other. And no offense to the American Conference or whatever that was up against the SEC. But
the American did almost as much as the ACC championship game.
I mean, that really does
3.4 compared to 2.7.
That really does tell us something.
More Tech Talk next.
It's every Red Raiders' favorite podcast. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hey, it's the Juice on Double T 97.3. And DoubleT973.com, brought to you by our good friends at Specs Wine, Spirits, and Finer Foods. Time for a look at today's biggest sports headlines. The Texas Tech Lady Raiders won their 7th game in a row today. They beat Sam Houston State 68-55 earlier today. It was the annual Education Day or whatever it's called. You had a bunch of youngsters in the building for another W by the Lady Raiders. Back in action in a couple of days. They're taking on Oral Roberts, or Oral Bob, as I like to say, on the 14th of December, so a week from tomorrow.
Yeah, and I believe they're careening into final exams here this coming weekend.
Former number 1 overall draft pick Baker Mayfield was claimed on waivers today by the LA Rams. He's expected to fly to Los Angeles sometime today and could play in the Rams game Thursday night against the Raiders. Japanese star Masataka Yoshida will post tomorrow, adding an outfielder to a baseball free agent market with scant depth at the position. The 29-year-old will be eligible to sign with a major league team through January 20th. Teams see Yoshida as a plug-and-play left field option with elite bat-to-ball skills.
Good year to post as an outfielder. It really is. I mean, once you get past Judge, it's a much shorter list from there.
How much of a gamble? How much of a gamble is a Japanese player like that? Like, what's the level of known unknown compared to drafting a college senior, or what's the?
Yeah, it would probably be the opposing wouldn't be taking a Japanese player versus a college senior, whereas it would be more of a free agency play. In other words, this guy is probably in his mid-20s.
Yeah, he's 29 years old.
Yeah,
I guess my point was like, how confident are you when you sign a player like this?
Gotcha, I see.
That it's going to translate pretty quick.
I think they've got a better handle on that, and there's been more information collected because the first few guys that came over, Dice K and Nomo, and I don't know, we could think most of those guys were pitchers. Mm-hmm. The earliest attempts to bring guys over, and there was varied degrees of success. The hitters have started to come over. I mean, there were some early guys. Who was the guy they nicknamed King Kong to play for the Yankees? Where's Jamie Lent? That was there in the early 2000s, big DH. Anyway, but there's more and more data on the hitters now than there has been, and so I think they've got a type. I think they've got a feel for it, and so I can't give you a great number on that, but I think they feel better about what they think works coming over than what they used to, because it used to be so filled with stereotypes and things like, oh, guys aren't that durable and this and that. But I think the level of athlete that's coming out of there, or at least the level of athlete that says, hey, I want to go try Major League Baseball, is a more physically ready athlete than what they've had, and than the old stereotypes of just the little wispy guy that was yeah.
I guess I should have just gone with what I know and made a football analogy.
Yeah.
So, like, taking a Power 5 transfer versus an FCS transfer, I guess is maybe what I should have gone.
Yeah, and I like that because or I even think Power 5, Group of 5, because one of the key guys that's in the portal is another Western Kentucky offensive lineman, mm-hmm. and I'm doing the same thing you're doing. I'm going.
Well, there's a UTEP lineman too that's apparently going to be very, very, very coveted.
Everybody wants him.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Twitter stuff is already happening, but that neither. And so both of those guys, Group of 5 guys, that is that the better analogy than a FCS? I don't know, but I think you're along the right lines. But again, I think there's been more data and more information. And I'm forgetting the best Japanese player in the world that was over here forever, 4,000 hits. Help me, Seattle Mariners. Yes, Ichiro.
That might be the biggest upset in the history of this program.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm all for it that you nailed it. But I also knew it was a name that everybody would know. I knew you had that one, dude. There was never a doubt.
This in the EH Flooring Center chat line. The Pac-12 game was on a Friday night, competing with high school football. Big 12 was first game on Saturday, not an indicator of real relevance. Really? Are you?
Do you really? Yeah,
it's not October, bro.
There's not a lot of teams that are still playing in high school football right now.
That's exactly. I mean, if those ratings had been, Texas ratings or something, I would lend some credence to that text right there. But nationwide, no. Nationwide, they're not. There's not a lot of people. Don't mistake what we have here in Texas in terms of interest in high school football for what goes on around the nation, and a lot of the northern schools get wrapped up quick. And as Clint said, even in the northern schools that are still playing, you don't have masses of teams. And boy, everybody in Illinois was out watching the state semifinals. It just doesn't happen that way. And so the other thing is, that 11 a.m. time slot, that information today, those ratings today, continue to give us data on the value of that 11 a.m. time slot. We hate it as fans. Well, as fans of the team that's playing at home.
Yeah.
Aaron and I both love the
I know, but neither of you guys are out there going to concerts with me and drinking beers before the game and all that, okay? as speaking for a man, as a man of the people.
Is that an invitation? Because we'll go.
I know. Yes,
I'll speak
it
for
is.
Aaron. We'll both go.
Yes, it is.
Wait, what? Where am I going?
You'll know when we get there, Aaron.
Okay.
To mix with crowds, Aaron. But I think the fact that the 11 a.m. time slot pulled a really big ratings number is an indication and a reminder to all who don't want to hear it that is a valuable time slot. There's a lot of eyeballs on that time slot. We as fans like to say, man, if we're doing really good and if they really loved us, they'd put us in the night game, but that's not always the case.
Yeah, because at this point now you have these media companies with these media deals that have these prime, what they view as prime slots dedicated to this conference or that conference, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I think 11 a.m. is great, and the number is great for the Big 12, and the fact that you had that number with TCU and Kansas State, no disrespect to them. And I would have said the same thing if it was Texas Tech. The fact that you had two teams in there that weren't Oklahoma, weren't Texas, and you had that gigantic number, very, very, very big deal. How much time do we have left in the segment, Clint?
About 45 seconds.
Okay, so if you're listening now, don't go anywhere. I have gigantic, in my opinion, transfer portal news for Texas Tech. Just breaking. I'll share it next on Double T 97.3. It's a tease.
The podcast put together with Red Raider fans in mind. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hey, it's Tech Talk on Double T 97.3 and Double T 97.3.com with Clint Scott and Dr. Mike Gustafson. I'm Aaron Dickens. We're joining you until 6 o'clock. Teased before the break. I will not drag this out. Just breaking in the last 10 minutes, a pair of announcements. Texas Tech starting defensive tackle Tony Bradford and Texas Tech starting defensive tackle Jaylen Hutchings, both announcing minutes ago they will be returning to Texas Tech for the 2023 football season. So you can go to sleep easy tonight, feeling about the interior of your defensive line. That is so huge. So huge.
Yeah, that's one of those positions, that and the O-line, and even I've kicked this around before, it's hard to impact those positions quickly. Now, portal aside, but the excitement that we all have for the group of signees, and there's a ton of linemen in there, both sides of the ball, but those kind of guys usually don't walk in and make impacts. And to that point, Adederay did some good things, and I think the farther into the year he got, the better he got. That's from my view on row 52 there. But to have lost those two guys would have been just problematic. It would have thinned that line out. It probably would have created another level of focus for portal help. NIL, well, I'm not saying NIL stuff, but just portal help. And, these are two core guys. I think everyone.
Cornerstone guys.
Yes. Everyone respects them inside the room, outside the room. We call him the mayor here in town and all that. And Bradford and you hear great things about these two guys and the fact that they're back. Now we, the Red Raiders, need good news on the two corners. Get those two guys back, because I think you're getting both safeties back, and then that's a pretty good core of a defense there. And it's less about those guys being great or elite than it is, man, life without them would be problematic. You should probably be a little bit young, a little bit thin in those positions, and as it is, you're anchoring those spots with some veteran dudes.
Oh, it completely changes the outlook of your defensive line for next year. Not that either of them are future, top 5 picks, right? I think it's fair to say that,
Good college players. Yeah.
But very, very good college players. And you and I were kind of spitballing during the break. I mean, it's not going to be a surprise at all if one or both are, get some preseason All Big 12 love entering next season. And I think, too, I mean, think about it. Oh, man, they don't have, the birth years anymore?
Are you looking at rivals again?
No, I'm looking at their these guys are going to be playing their fifth season. Playing their fifth season, not just around for their fifth.
Classic
playing.
Yeah, classic 6th-year COVID seniors.
These are grown men.
Mm-hmm. Would be 23, 24 years old, right?
Yeah, it has to be. So that's a big deal. Think about 5 off seasons of strength and conditioning, right? 5 off seasons of nutrition, sports science, all this stuff, and that adds up, man. And this is very, very exciting. And you lose Trey Wolf. He announces today he's going to pursue an NFL degree or an NFL career. You have the Geno guy at kicker, kind of waiting in the wings there. But man,
he got a couple reps early in the year. That was very much of that's the funny thing about it. That's what's so great about what Wolf did. That was a competition in August.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
Not something we focused on a lot, but maybe to his credit, he pushed Wolf. I don't know, but he kicked it. He had a game where they traded off field goals and they both missed them. Was it Houston?
I don't remember, but I know
it was one of the early games.
There was a game where maybe it was Murray State.
Yeah, it could have been. But yeah, so there's somebody that's gotten reps, and he was an all-conference type guy last year at Houston Baptist, now Houston Christian.
And speaking of looking back, because it just flies by, right? And we're only talking about a matter of 3 or 4 months, but it seems like ages ago. Think about the game one, and you and I, we sat at Twin Peaks on the first Thursday of the season, really. And we were just amped for that West Virginia Pitt game.
Yeah.
Backyard brawl, rivalry.
Thursday night.
Yep. Yeah.
Yep.
And, you had a pair of transfer quarterbacks making their debuts for their new teams, and there was some excitement, etc. Pitt ended up winning that game, although it was a fairly entertaining ball game. Both those quarterbacks are gone. Yeah. How about that? JT Daniels announcing, hey, he's out of there. He's looking for his 4th team now. Good luck. Good luck, JT. And then Slovis is also leaving Pitt. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it really is.
Not that long ago.
It really is.
3 months ago. This is the Yates Flooring Center chat line from Shelley. So stoked that Bradford and Hutchings are coming back. Someone else says D-tackles coming back is bigger news than any new recruit we could get. I think that's a very good point. Accurately stated.
Yes, sir.
Somebody else says absolutely huge news for the defense. Yeah, because that buys you time, right?
Yes,
we with all of the great results that McGuire and his staff have gotten, are getting, will get in traditional recruiting avenues, high school recruiting, etc. That takes time to develop and germinate and grow and mature. You're not going to be sticking some, outside of very rare cases, true freshman D tackles out there in Big 12 play, unless you have no other option. This buys you time. Not only are Bradford and Hutchings very, very good college players, among the best defensive tackles you've had in the last, 25 years or so. I don't think I'm being hyperbolic there. It also buys you time to let those young guys get in the weight room, eat a bunch, grow, mature, learn the system. It's such a huge win-win for this program.
To be red shirts and just what you're saying, as opposed to guys that are stuffed into the rotation and maybe getting it handed to them if they're not quite ready yet as true freshmen. And that's why I think Dataray probably had a certain level of effectiveness, because he wasn't asked to play 60 plays a game.
Yeah. Give me 100% of what you got.
You bet.
For 15
Kind of a Mark Adams philosophy to basketball. Same thing.
More Tech Talk next.
the podcast that finishes your workday in a very Red Raider way. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3.
Hi there, it's Tech Talk on Double T 97.3 and Double T 97.3.com with Dr. Mike Gustafson and Clint Scott. I'm Aaron Dickens. We're joining you today until 6. Would love to hear your thoughts and comments on the Yates Flooring Center chat line at Double T 97.3.com. We didn't talk a lot about this yesterday because there was, so much going on. What did y'all make of North Texas moving on from former Texas Tech running backs coach, former North Carolina offensive line coach Seth Littrell, or offensive coordinator, excuse me?
It felt like he was on the ropes a year or two ago and survived it. And I would have guessed that he had gotten traction there. But the most interesting part about that story, because he's had relative success there, certain number of bowl games and championship game appearances and whatnot. But, his, the most, I don't know, the most noteworthy part of that, not knowing the situation, but the most noteworthy part of that was that the AD was hired. Well, I'll say it this way. The athletic director from North Texas moved to West Virginia, and the personnel move that a lot of people expected wasn't, as a result of his moving, wasn't the one in Denton. Most people thought, oh, man, Neil Brown's gone. And instead it was in his wake. Basically the president stepped in, I think, and said, hey, we're taking care of this. And so I don't know where the rub was, but he's out, and they played in the championship game.
They did. Yeah, they played for the Conference USA Championship. Here's the list of North Texas head coaches.
Cradle of coaches.
That finished their careers with an overall winning percentage, their careers at North Texas, of 500 or better.
Okay? Pay attention, because this is going to be a quick list, Clint.
Right. Hayden Fry,
Hall of Famer.
Jerry Moore,
Hall of Famer. College football Hall of Famer. Just
and
so we're clear.
Seth Littrell.
There you go.
End of list.
Isn't it funny, too, like when you look back, because it seemed like it was a done deal that he was going to Kansas State while the iron was still hot. And the same year that he gets fired, Kansas State wins the Big 12 championship with the guy they ended up hiring afterwards.
And to be clear, I like Seth. I think he's a good coach. I like Tommy Maynard, who's on that staff. Speaking of North Texas, real quick, sidebar, they played in that conference championship game. I watched it. It was pretty good for a little while. You realize that their starting quarterback, you know how old he is?
Mm-mm.
How old are you, Clint? Yeah, he's 29 years old.
Is he really?
He's 29 years old.
What's the story?
Can you imagine? I think he just played baseball and then came back.
Yeah. Wow.
I mean, golly, 29. That's
hello, fellow college students. It is I, right? One of you.
Didn't OSU have the punter last year that was 32 or something?
I mean, that's just crazy.
Just walking away from conversations with someone on campus, like, hey, is that dude a cop?
I don't, narc.
Get out of here, narc. Yeah, exactly.
That old creeper hitting on girls.
North Texas is going to the American next year. Littrell was winless in bowl games. He was winless in conference championship games. I don't think he had beat an FBS non-conference opponent since like 2019 or something. He was running a lengthy losing streak there. I think it's easy to look at the conference record and maybe even the overall record and go, oh, what are you guys doing? Know your place. But let's not forget, this time last year we were talking about a Tech football program that fired their coach when you were 5-3. And that happened because of context that isn't easily visible from just looking at, the current record or the overall record. And I think they've got resources. I think they've got a lot of money for, the position that they're in. I think they have decent facilities. And it's a very coveted job, I think. We'll see what happens there, but I think they'll be able to probably upgrade,
It's not it doesn't cost a lot of money for them to go out and recruit and see games and stuff. Like, hey, after dinner, I'm going to run over to South Lake Carroll, or I'm going to run over to. It's just they right should, there.
If I'm North Texas, right? If I'm an administrator from the president, if I'm a fan, whatever, you should contend in the AAC. I think that, they have resources. I don't know that they have SMU resources, but they have resources. The location is tremendous. Mm-hmm. You have some decent history. I mean, so I don't hate them for dreaming big here. You know,
yeah,
especially since okay. Like, they're going to be competing with UTSA and these programs for a long time.
They I can remember, and this is probably in the early days of bulletin boards and listservs and things like that. You would remember this better than I would, but I remember when Coach Spike retired, and somebody somewhere, one of those voices in the ether, said something like, "Who does Tech think they are? Who are they going to get that's better for them than Spike Dykes?" And infuriated me from behind my keyboard and my monitor or whatever. For the first of what I didn't realize was going to be the rest of my life.
Right.
But excuse me.
I'll just respond to this one guy, and then I'll be done.
Exactly. I'm never doing this again. But and so I'm sort of sensitive to the fact, because my inclination is, I have lower expectation, and I probably should. Don't have ties to the school, but they clearly have higher expectations for themselves than I have for them. And again, as it should be, but I also am sensitive to the fact that it's a pretty smug thing to run around going, who does North Texas think they are? The reality is they got a lot going for them, and it's a total sidebar, but they're one of the schools that's like, man, if they would ever fire up a baseball program, because they had it. I played against them. I mean,
I didn't realize they didn't.
Yeah, I know. Chain link fence at a park kind of a deal, which a lot of college baseball was played on back then. But to start up a program now, it requires some facilities and stuff. But it would, they hire the right dude in there, and it would be they could get in there and probably be problematic for a lot of us. But Dallas Baptist,
sure.
Yeah, I mean, Dallas Baptist is showing us what can be done by recruiting the Metroplex really, really well.
I mean, Memphis, SMU, South Florida, Temple, ECU, Tulane, Charlotte, FAU, Rice, UAB, UTSA. I mean, North Texas can compete with those programs.
Can we come back to that topic?
Sure, more Tech Talk next.
It's every Red Raiders' favorite podcast. This is the Tech Talk Podcast from Double T 97.3.
Deep thoughts with Tech Talk. It's Tech Talk on Double T 97.3 and Double T 97.3.com with Dr. Mike Gustafson and Clint Scott. I'm Aaron Dickens. We'd love to hear from you on the Yates Flooring Center chat line, Double T 97.3.com, with you until 6 o'clock here from the First United Bank studio. Gus, you wanted to opine further on the mean green of North Texas?
Well, it was really about the list you rattled off at the very end. You were naming the basically the cities. You were naming the institutions, but every one of and this is something I've always thought has been unique about the American Conference, right? And that was the topic, right? Yeah. Okay. All of them in metropolitan areas. And that's where I think North Texas fits well. I mean, they slide right into a conference with you said it, Charlotte. I'm naming cities now. Charlotte, New Orleans, Memphis. I think about those as being. Some of those are
really the only one that's not.
Yeah.
Memphis, yes. SMU, yes. USF, Tampa, yes. Yeah. Temple, yes. Tulane, Tulsa, yes. I mean, Tulsa's not gigantic, but it's still a metro. Charlotte, Boca Raton, North Texas, Denton, Metroplex area, Houston with Rice, Birmingham, UTSA, San Antonio, is East Carolina.
Yeah.
In Boone.
And most of those, I wouldn't say most, just without writing them down and think about it, but I don't know, a third to a half of those are what I would call like a major league city, meaning, and most all of them are sort of minor league cities. In other words, Tulsa doesn't have an NBA team, but they've got a minor league baseball team. You get what I'm saying?
And I think a G League affiliate.
Yeah, there you go. New Orleans. I mean, we can start running down that list. Charlotte's obviously got a couple teams, et cetera. And that's it's just a nice. I think the North Texas addition to that league is a good fit for the league. And then, it may be the catalyst for the president going, "Hey, enough is enough. It's time. We've been thinking about moving on, and we're about to step into the big leagues now, relatively speaking."
We get this in the Yates Flooring Center chat line. Very coveted job is probably a stretch to describe the North Texas gig. Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, obviously, it's not Alabama. I shouldn't be expected to qualify that when talking about a program that not that long ago was in the Sun Belt. But they were paying Seth Littrell more than any other coach in Conference USA before Traylor got his new deal last year, right? They opened up a new facility in 2019, a new indoor. They've got great facilities for Conference USA. I would guess we'll have great facilities for the American. Their stadium's only about a decade old, right? Mm-hmm. So they clearly invest in athletics. They invest in salary. Their recruiting profile is very, very good. I don't know what else there is to say. I mean, that's a very, very good group of 5 job. You can live in a nice place. You should be able to win. I think that you're going to get a lot of interested folks. And again, Nick Saban's not going to go for this job.
Sure.
No duh.
Yeah, we're not.
Yeah, give me a break.
I don't think you're making that point.
But is North Texas better than Tulsa? Yes. Is it better than Texas State? Infinitely. Yes. Is it better than Rice? Of course, definitely. Is it better than UTEP? Yes. And it's probably not. Clearly UTSA has it rolling right now. I don't know enough about their facilities to know which one would be kind of more coveted. We're both to open, but this in the chat line. Hayden Fry really wanted North Texas in the Southwest Conference. Tracy in Dallas says this: I'm hearing there are several Tech linebackers headed to the portal. I realize all this transfer portal stuff is very much ever evolving and ongoing, but can you confirm or deny? I mean, you've had one player into the portal, linebacker Derek Lewis. I don't think that's necessarily something that you should lose any sleep over.
Tavares Elston.
Oh yeah, Tavares Elston too. Again,
a redshirted freshman.
You should. I mean, honestly, I don't want to be harsh, but if we're just keeping it 100 here, if you're a Tech fan, you're probably you're more than happy with that because you want room like that. The dirty little secret here is, and Dion, Coach Prime, said the quiet part out loud, in his team meeting with the returning Buffaloes players. The quiet part out loud is that for a lot of these staffs, you want some of these players to leave because that way you feel like you can upgrade either with another player in the portal or you can upgrade with a high school prospect that you feel good about developing. That's just the fact of the matter.
Drew DeArmond, I think, is another one. Derek Lewis was the other one, and Lewis is the one that's not a true freshman in that group, but not a guy that was in the. And I'm looking at a summer draft. Goodness,
roster.
A summer depth chart. Yeah. Basically, what we had going into camp. Which is not to say that he couldn't have played his way into that at some point, but I would tell you that he was passed by Jacob Rodriguez and Bryce Ramirez and some of those guys that unfortunately for both those guys injuries, but it just felt like there was more buzz around the performance of some of the other guys around them than the 3 linebackers that we're talking about. There's and you said it best. There's a real desire, because I think the thought was all year, this roster's full. Doesn't mean it's the perfect roster, but it just means the numbers are just about maxed out. And I don't know that down to the nth degree, but to every last spot. But it's been the narrative. Whereas, I mean, contrast that with Kansas, and this didn't mean we're not dragging on it on the program, but when we've talked about, well, that's fine, I don't know. But for the last couple of years, they haven't had their numbers, and we all knew it. I mean, everybody's talked about that. They've just never been able to get the roster full. Tech, as we headed into this season, had a really full roster going, hey, some of those NIL guys would be great, but you can't carry 130 guys. When I was a GA strength and conditioning coach, we had like 150 people, but there were no rules about that. And I mean, we had walk-ons coming out of our ears, and that was the idea. Throw a lot of names at the wall and maybe find some pleasant surprises out of that.
You've been listening to the Tech Talk podcast from Double T 97.3. Check out Double T973.com for more from Lubbock Sports Station.